What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Bootleg Weekly. I'm here with Roy. It feels like we haven't done one of these in a while. I think we missed the last week. Yeah, we did. We didn't do it last time, so a long time. But we're back. We're back now, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Roy, how's it going?
Good, man. Busy week. Always fun. Glad to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. I was just telling Roy behind the scenes, I got the new iPad. I've been meaning to buy one, and so I was just waiting for the new one to be announced, and it finally arrived earlier today. So I've been playing around with it, and it's kind of cool. We're going to talk about Apple, I'm sure, at some point or another tonight. But yeah, I was just like a kid at Christmas, just playing with this thing. It's actually like right here. So I'm gonna include it in my setup at some point in the future, maybe as like an alternate camera, so I can toggle between the different views. That might be fun, actually. Lots of experimentation to go. What are we thinking of talking about first, Roy? What do you think?
Well, I can make mention. I think most people here probably are in tune with SoFi Weekly and everything. But I was out last week because picking up college son, doing a couple errands, and driving across the country, and driving in a new Tesla. So we talked a little bit about it on SoFi, but it's fun to. You've done the same thing with Apple here. When you've invested in a company, you've done due diligence. It's just a little bit different when you actually have the product and are driving the product. And I mentioned this on SoFi Weekly that there's a couple things driving the Tesla that I realize now that I wouldn't have realized before, and it's one of those things is autopilot, which is it's free. They also have the steering beta that you can be in there, so it actually controls the lane, but the autopilot's the advanced cruise control. Those are so good that, like, I don't know, full self driving I'm sure is great. I haven't been able to try it yet, but when you have a free product that you offer just with the car that's really, really, really good, it's a tougher ask to get somebody to pay $99 a month for full self-driving. It just is, because it's like, man, this is pretty much like 95% of what I need. Like, when full self-driving can actually, I can just play on my phone or take a nap and get to where I need to be. Great, sign me up. But I'll try it. I'll try it at some point, probably in November or so. When I don't know if I'll ever get tired of driving the Tesla, but yeah, there was one big piece of news with Tesla that I didn't want us to get lost in the weeds with. This is from Sawyer, big Tesla guy, and this is a little bit. I don't know about you, but this surprised me. I thought
Right.
that there was a very good chance that Elon Musk's pay package, which was approved back in 2018, and seemed outrageous at the time. Maybe that's why some shareholders said yes, because they're like, "Hey, if this actually happens, the stock will have mooned," and it did. Like, Elon Musk, he's an executor, and so Delaware court package basically ruled that, or court ruled that it was illegal for a number of reasons, and they would need to be reissued. So they've done that. Now, we don't know how retail will vote, but this is how the major shareholders, the institutions, have voted. Did this surprise you?
So this isn't how they voted in 2018. Um,
Oh, this was 2018? I misread
yeah,
that then.
yeah. So this is how they voted back in 2018, which should give us an indication of how they might vote today. The reason being is that the vote is coming up in June, right? So the vote hasn't happened yet, but that's going to give us a good idea. Now, what I can tell you is a lot more of those institutions are going to be voting no when the revote comes up, simply because, I mean, the stock has been sort of on a downtrend over the last couple of years, and we'll see what happens. My hunch is that more of those institutions are going to be voting no. I'm just trying to pull it up here, but the last time there was a vote, however, regardless of how these institutions voted, we had an overwhelming majority of investors vote yes. I think something like 80% of investors voted to instate that compensation package. And so while it may seem like Vanguard and State had this massive sway to the downside, it's actually quite muted by the other investors in Tesla that voted for the positive. So we'll see what happens in the June vote. My guess is that those institutions are still going to vote no. You have to also understand the ulterior motives. Like there was, I think it was like Leo Guan or one of the big Tesla
Yeah.
investors who publicly said that he was going to vote no. What that can happen around this because every that if they vote no, then Elon won't stay, or at least that's the main fear. And the idea there is that some people might try to game that experience where they might try to, essentially vote no and short the stock, or try to make the vote not pass and short the stock because of that sentiment. And so many people are just going to be selling if the vote comes out to no because of that mental association that Elon might not stay. That I'm worried about, it's like the short-term manipulation or the short-term game might affect the stock. But again, I think there was a different excitement in the first vote, even though Tesla was like a $50 billion company back then or something to that effect. They had this really great roadmap ahead of them, and now a lot of that, a lot of the story for Tesla today is about scale and their ability to do that effectively. The robot and the AI aspects of it, like all of that is still long dated. And so I think that investors right now, there's not enough of a push or an excitement level or an understanding even for the robot to fuel that next wave of excitement that'll lead everyone to overwhelmingly vote yes. You have to also understand that the company is $500 billion company today, whereas before it was a $50 billion company. Like there's different consequences there for even the risk reward that these institutions, can have. Obviously, everybody is incentivized to vote yes. I actually voted yes on a couple of my accounts, depending on the broker. I have a couple that I still have to go through the process of it because for me, it really makes sense to vote yes because I know that I believe in the leadership and I want the leadership to be there to fuel that next leg of growth.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't know how this will turn out. Like it seems like it's gonna be closer than I'd like. But I think Elon Musk, if the vote doesn't go his way, he has plenty on his plate. He'll just be like, all right, SpaceX all the way, then baby. And that's not great as a shareholder. I don't really see why. I understand why institutions may vote otherwise, but I don't really see why somebody would be invested in Tesla and yet be perfectly comfortable with Elon Musk saying no to this and seeing Elon Musk hit the door because he's not making anything if he doesn't get a package. It's a lot of money, but frankly, he's already earned it, and I'd like to see him stick around. So, yeah, we'll have to see. The other piece of Tesla news that was last week, but I saw this, I think, literally as I drove home and parked in the garage with the used Tesla that I bought, the 0.99% interest rate that was offered on Model Ys for up to 6 years. And here in the United States, they did something like this in Germany not even a month ago. My wife and I were talking, and with the we had to sell a little bit of stuff anyway. Some silver. I'll have a post on that tomorrow. Some actual physical silver. It's a pain to get rid of, by the way, if you have some and you want to get rid of it. So stocks all the way from me, man. Yeah, but I told my wife, I was like, hey, if they offer a subsidized interest rate like this in Germany, we should totally get new. Like it just makes sense. And I didn't want to, be carrying like 8% interest on a new car. Like that doesn't make sense or whatever it is. It's a little bit lower than that. So got home and I was like, oh man, we missed it by a little bit. No regrets. The 2022 Tesla Model 3, it's great. Got it for a really good price, 18.5, and then there's taxes and fees, But love it. So the Y is our next car, and hopefully we can get interest rates that good. But This will be interesting because it's a limited time offer. And this quarter, I know many people were held back because of the interest rate payments. Most people, frankly, can't plunk down 36, 38,000 right then and then pay higher insurance bills and all that stuff and the taxes. So this really helps, and I think it'll be interesting to see how fast this accelerates their sales. Do you think they're going to keep this around for long, Tevis?
As long as they can. I mean, look, I think they have the leverage at their disposal to be able to play around with the interest manufacture demand whenever they need to. And by doing that, they can further price their competition out of the market because we know that it costs them, like they have more margin room to play around with relative to their competition, especially legacy competition. And
Yeah.
so if this is a war of attrition, then yeah, the interest rates are not great from a pure demand perspective to say, okay, well, they shouldn't have to do this if there was a strong demand as we think there is. But even if they, it's not going to be that bad because if they're, if they have a paper cut, others are just like bleeding out. But I'm biased, so I'll always be having rose-colored glasses on when it comes to this type of stuff. I don't think they're going to do it for too long. It's mostly, as we are in this limbo phase, as rates start to fall and that demand starts to flow more naturally, then they won't feel the need to do it. But to tide them over until that time, then, I see no real material harm in it, especially because they have so much just cash. Like, I think the worst thing that they can do is lower the rate of their production, especially if you tie into that long-term vision around full self-driving and autonomy and what they want to achieve there. And so if it is a little bit of lower margins in the short term or, some cash burn in the short term, they have a pretty ample war chest to be able to, so as to keep the production line going at a high capacity because it's going to get them to that long-term vision all the sooner, right?
Yeah, and I don't know that this will be cash burn necessarily, but they'll make less for sure. They have to subsidize and pay that. And I also think it's a lot better than them just continuing to slash the prices. Like if they offer the Model Y at like let's say 28K, like it just makes people that bought the car upset. And this is a different way of doing basically the same thing, but instead you're just putting a lower interest rate and people that are in the car, they don't care. It doesn't hurt the resale value or anything like that. It also doesn't put in the minds of people like, hey, this car used to be less and now it's more. I don't want to buy that. So I think it's a much better way to go. Kudos to Team Tesla. So you want to talk GM next? GME? Not General Motors.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, we're taking a weird pivot. I
Mary
know
Lara.
my internet is being a little weird. I don't know why. I'll figure it out afterwards. I don't want to play around with it while I'm live, so really apologize for that. Yes, the Canadian internet jokes are already starting to flow in.
Yes.
We can talk about GME. Yeah, Roaring Kitty is back. He tweeted out for the first time in like 3 years a couple days ago, and since then he's been nonstop tweeting, which is pretty crazy. Especially because I think yesterday he actually tweeted about GameStop for the first time, whereas the previous 20 tweets before that was sort of just innuendo and clips from movies with hidden messages in it. So he hadn't really named any particular stock, but he did name GameStop. And GameStop is currently, let me see.
You got to pull up the 24-hour to see where it's really at. So
okay, well, you can do it.
So
you can do it then, man. I can barely have internet here.
33.64. So it's down a good bit today, a good bit overnight. I mean, it's not a surprise. Usually memes will pop for a couple of days and then fade. GameStop does have a pretty supportive community of people that'll diamond hand and hold. Did you buy any GameStop, AMC, Tupperware, any of these?
No. I didn't buy them back then, and I didn't buy them this time around either. But the funny thing is that, I have a very good friend, and he was just like, he held out, and he's like, fuck it, guys. I bought some GameStop. And we're like, dude, what are you doing? And then he tweeted, or he posted in our WhatsApp group the next day. He's like, guys, I'm up double. I should have bought more. I'm such an idiot. I should have sold everything and bought more. And I'm like, what the heck are you saying? And so, yeah, it gets people, man.
Yeah, FOMO's real, and it does. Like I at $20 in the overnight market, I was like, I should really buy some, and I put a limit order instead of just putting a limit order higher than it was and getting into it. So I got some at 25, just 2 shares because I have no money in Robinhood. I'm in the process of transferring my accounts over to Robinhood. I have like less than $200, and a lot of it's in stuff that I want to be in already. So I was like, well, 2 shares. So I made like $40, sold them. It's a fun little thing, but yeah, if anyone's holding GameStop, AMC, like, congratulations. Don't let people, one thing I really don't like seeing is people, make fun of folks that are making, like, if you're making money, good. Just be careful about FOMO. Like Tevis said, that's a real thing where, you're up like double or triple, and then you're like, hey, maybe I should put everything in there. Think carefully. And it's better to make those sort of decisions on the front end. Like for myself, I have an amount that, and then just for fun play, I'm perfectly happy to put down. Like it's if it's under $500, it's like, that's fine. If I have the money there, I can play with that. If I lose $500, yeah, it's $500. Like I don't love losing money, but it's fine. And then I also have established boundaries for myself. Once GameStop actually hit $80, I'm like, yeah, I need to look for an exit here because I think that's maybe the peak. I didn't sell at the peak, but when it started coming back down, I'm like, all right, I'm going to put a stop order here, and just whatever tools you need to do, know going in. It's better to not make decisions based on emotion, but it's a little bit tricky too. I'm not a great trader. That's why I don't do it very often, but I do little things like this just to kind of get better at gauging things. Better investor than trader, but I'll trading, there is certainly emotion in play, and so that's really what's happening behind the memes. Is there's a lot of emotion, a lot of excitement, a lot of memes, and then there was a couple of responses to that. Did you see the SEC former SEC chairman's take towards that?
I did not. Tell me about it.
Let
By the way,
me,
I'm going to try to
pull it up.
switch my. I'm going to try to switch my internet over. So if I drop temporarily, that's why.
All right. Yeah, let me pull that up. Where is it? Canadian internet, guys.
Okay.
Here it is. All right. And
I don't think it's any better.
And I'll share. All right. I think it'll play the volume. I may be wrong, but go ahead and pull that up if you can, Tevis.
Yeah, let me do that now. Actually, I think this is worse. Look, I'm switching it back. Hold on.
I think Tevis has become a ventriloquist. Oh yeah, as we're kind of waiting for Tevis's internet to get back on. I don't. The other thing to not do is like don't make fun of people that are making money on it. Like a lot of times these memes are a person's first entry into the stock market. So it wasn't my first entry, but I made a lot of money back on AMC back in the day because I was like, hey, got a little money to put in that stock, and it did a 4x, and I knew to sell as well. So if people are making money, a lot of times they're learning along the way. They're making mistakes. Like I still remember when I first learned about market cap, I'm like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. And so everybody's got to learn somewhere. All right, let me hit this play button and let me know if you can hear the sound, Tevis.
Yeah. It's really, really, really faint.
Whether it's legal or illegal trading, that's clear. Let's see, and he's trading on his own information. That's why it's not insider trading. But is this something that we should be tolerating in our markets? Whether it's legal or illegal, I don't think so. And that's why I say, why doesn't he?
But what does that mean? Not to tolerate. So the idea, I would think, is you look at this more in the context of market manipulation, right? And the question is, are you allowed to manipulate the market? People, by the way, publish things all the time, and they say, hey, I like this stock, and they, hope that other folks follow them. Is that market manipulation?
Generally not.
Maybe not. So what is the distinction in your mind as somebody who ran this department and who's looking at and cares about the integrity of these markets?
That's why I'm saying, okay, we can discuss what are exactly the facts and circumstances around the publication of this tweet and the like. But in the meantime, if you care about the markets and you care about investing, come on this program. Tell people why you did this.
From your lips, God bless you. We hope he does.
Of course, they want the views, but yeah, what do you think? Is what Roaring Kitty did? A, is it market manipulation, and B, where should that line be drawn?
First of all, that guy, what's his name? Jay something? Jay Clayton?
Jay Clayton, yeah.
Yeah, Jay Clayton can go royally because it's just ridiculous to think that when somebody who is not, a part of their institutions or in the legacy financial media, like they're doing it through a community of retail investors on a Reddit page, and they're doing like the same thing we're doing, right? It's like me taking the time out of my day to look at SoFi financials and to find something to realize that the stock is undervalued and make videos on YouTube just like this guy did, and then tell people, wow, guys, SoFi is really undervalued, and do it for years and literally nobody notices, because that's what he was doing. He was making videos for years and nobody notices. And then this thing blows up and all of a sudden it's, should we tolerate that? It's absolutely elitist. It's gatekeeping. It's so slimy, in my opinion, especially because these guys insider trade and manipulate 100x worse than this guy does on any given day, on his best day. And so it's just so, I don't know. It's just so it's just slimy to me.
Yeah. And, maybe it is in a certain extent manipulation, but I mean, are you going to draw the line where people can't post memes, where they can't say anything about a stock if they're retail unless they have some sort of financial analyst certification? Like that's bad for everybody. And ultimately, like the SEC has
for a reason, right? Like there's a reason it's a market, is because like the market essentially decides what goes up and what goes down. You can't really control, what stock people buy as much as you can control anything that people buy. Because like, where do you draw the line if you start going down that rabbit hole?
Yeah. And it's just, it makes me upset, like actually just to hear something like this, just how elitist it is and how anti-retail, and they call us dumbass. Like I can get why people want to see short sellers burn, like because of stuff like this. And what makes me even more upset, this is a former, I believe, before Gary Gensler, chairman. There might have been someone in between, but Gensler was brought in. I don't know if you remember this, but he was seen as somebody that was very retail friendly. And he's frankly been the opposite. You see that with, of course, the Wells notice with Robinhood, with the crypto stuff. They also did something similar with Coinbase, all the anti-Bitcoin litigation that ended up going nowhere. And SEC is, if this guy is saying something, it means probably the SEC is like, hey, we're pretty okay with what they're saying here. And it's just like, dude, quit being freaking anti-retail. What's happening is not illegal. Let people be able to buy the stocks that they want. 24-hour trading should be a thing. Crypto, there should not be this issue that we have here in the United States of America. It makes me upset. Like, go after the politicians that are basically doing insider trading. Nancy Pelosi, just make make it so that you can buy only index funds and only in these certain parameters or timeframes, much like you would do so, if you're a CEO of a company. Do something like that, with the large funds where there actually is real manipulation. We saw some of it. I very rarely use the word manipulation, but we saw some of that for sure with SoFi when it came to that the senior convertible notes offering. Is like that's happening. Like you can see in the way people are talking. It was very evident. It's like, and they do nothing because these people have money and they're hard to go after. Retail or small fries is like, this is awful. Gary Gensler, frankly, he needs to find a different job, and somebody needs to be brought in that'll actually be serious if they're going to even exist. Prosecuting some of the big fish, not retail, not Roaring Kitty. So makes me mad.
I think to a certain degree, like every retail investor who builds their own portfolio as opposed to going the passive route is inherently, to some degree, anti-establishment with regards to regulation in the market, because it restricts your freedom of mobility in terms of what you can invest in. And everybody's entitled to an opinion. Mine can be a really stupid opinion. It can be a really well-informed opinion. So can yours, and so can, everybody else's. But these are people in position that can actually legitimately influence change as a result of their role that they play. Gary Gensler, this guy, Jay Clayton. And it's just, again, it's restrictive. And I think that phrasing just gives me flashbacks of, our prime minister saying, are we going to tolerate these views of war because you live in a democracy, first of all? And, second of all, it's like, I don't see this when Tommy Tuberville trades, whatever energy stock that goes up 85% in the past month. And it just so happens that he sits on the commission for that, energy stock that he's trading. It's just like, go follow QuiverQuant, go follow Unusual Whales, and then take a look at all of these politicians trading, and then take a look at the bills that have been brought forward to ban politicians trading, and look who's voting against those bills. And then come back and look at these people who are pointing fingers at a random freaking retail investor, and he's not even doing anything. He's posting a meme, dude. Like, go fuck yourself, honestly. Like, at what point is it ridiculous?
Taking a page out of Elon Musk's book, I guess. But
no, but seriously, it's just it's baffling to me. Like, the fact that that doesn't get outrage from people. And I think just like a lot of retail investors might feel the outrage internally, but they're so discouraged and over it that they just like brush it aside and accept it as fact. And it's those same people, and it's that exact same sentiment that causes a stock like go up 100x, because it's those same exact people that are buying GameStop hand over fist, not really caring if they gain money or if they lose money, just wanting to be part of a movement that's bigger than themselves, because that's they feel they're heard.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how things play out. People were asking if GameStop will get another bump at some point. Eventually, yeah. Don't know when that is. It's hard to predict the memes. One thing that's a little bit more predictable, if you throw this up, of course, now 3 out of 4 SoFi Weekly people, Tevis being the last holdout, own Robinhood shares. Of course, Steven is with us sometimes, but Vlad Tenev quoted this. He actually responded to a lot of memes of roaring kitties and was posting memes of his own. It was great. But they mentioned they hit $5 billion in equities trading volume, one of their biggest days in the past 12 months. Quarter 2 is going to be really good. And this sort of thing, it's maybe, I don't mind trading some memes, when things are flying. I don't do it very well, and I don't do it very large just because I'm terrible at it. But Robinhood is one of these things where it can benefit from these. So sometimes you can look at tangential plays and say, hey, maybe I can't time the top or the bottom, or I don't know, how much to go in with. But you can think about what else might be running with this. And Robinhood is one of those things. It's done quite well over the last week as well. I actually had, funnily enough, I'm moving over to the Robinhood brokerage from Webull, and my very small Roth, which is insignificant. It's tiny. I think I have $3,500 in there. So it's not even my full allocation. A lot of that came from my work. I did a little $52 trade for Robinhood on Friday, and it's up 100 something percent. And because of that, they kept canceling the transfer. I'm like, oh man, I forgot about this. I got to sell out of it. But I had a question though. I know you don't own Robinhood. I guess 2 questions. First, are you more interested in Robinhood given this environment where it seems like there's more risk on trading? There's a lot more volume coming in. There's more volatility. And Robinhood, by the way, spiked briefly to the number 10 financial app. It hit, I believe, the top 200 for the first time in quite some time. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, 2021 all over again, right?
Yeah. If we get into that season, like if we see some of these names continue to pop up here and there, are you interested?
I it depends on what some of these names are. But like, so I think it's just a different part of, if I compartmentalize why I'm making this investment, it would be a completely different part. It'd be the same as, you know, me putting $100 or $200 on DraftKings and I just put it on GameStop or AMC or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm just doing it for the dopamine hit, and the short term, you know, it doesn't work. But it's not like a long-term portfolio. And I think that, well, I agree that everybody should have the agency to do whatever they want and invest in whatever they want. I will say that it makes me worried about the health of underlying markets if this stuff is still happening, because in 2021, when this stuff was happening, it was a prelude to a pretty rough 2022 in terms of weeks and just the QT in general. And right now, that's still happening again. And meanwhile, on one hand, you know, you have a certain group of people, officials or whatnot, and they're talking about a soft landing situation or whether we're going to be headed to a deeper recession. And on the other hand, you have people that are YOLOing GameStop and it's doubling and tripling overnight. And you're like, what recession, man? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? The last time this was happening, people were getting handed checks by the COVID, and they were like, okay, fuck it. Like, I'm getting $500 from the government. I might as well try to double it because house money, right? It's monopoly money at that point. So that part makes me worried about the underlying health of the market and what signal that. How do you think Jay Powell is, you know, feeling about all of this? They're like, oh, screw it. Like, we can hold out for longer if the markets are like this.
I'm going to push back on that. I think it's the opposite here. So back in 2021, you're absolutely right. You know, free money, people don't think of free money that the government hands them in the same way as they think about it when they earn money the hard way. I know that because when I was a kid, my parents would give me money very rarely. It was like, hey, this is great, easy to spend, versus if I had to go out and mow lawns for $8 per hour and I got paid in stinking Canadian quarters because Canada is terrible. Even though I was in Alaska, then, you know, that was a lot harder to spend also because it was Canadian money. But no, it's a little bit different now. There's two times when people tend to take these sort of degenerate risks. One is when you have that free money that doesn't feel real. And the other is when you're desperate. And I think that, I don't know if people are at the point of desperation yet, but that tends to be a thing where people are like, hey, I'm losing money every single week. I'm going to lose a house if these things keep up. Let me just put it all in black. And people really do that are in those difficult situations. And so I don't know how much of this is that, but it feels like some of it is. And so I hope that Powell is nuanced enough to know the difference here, that it's not that there's too much free money in the system. There's a lot less right now, to be honest. It's tough. But there's a lot of people in tough places. And I think some people are betting, hopefully not the house. And if they did, I hope they made it out big and sold. You know, I hope everybody makes money, although that's not the reality. But there are desperate people out there that are making desperate plays and seeing this as their only hope. And so it's dangerous if Powell reads into it and says, oh, this is 2021 again. I don't think it is. I think that this meme spike will be shorter lived as a result. I don't know that we'll get much continuance. I think there'll be little flare ups here and there. But we already see, you know, GameStop selling off. Now, the other question that I had for you is, you know, Wall Street Bets is one of those names that was thrown back in 2020, 2021. One name that we hold has been mentioned quite frequently on that. It's a highly shorted stock, one that you probably know of. It's now profitable. It's not a meme. That's SoFi. 18.23% short interest, I believe, per the not New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, back at the end of the month. So what do you think? Is this causing some of those short sellers to maybe reconsider and see this as more of a risky bet, or do you think it has no impact at all on SoFi?
Has an impact on SoFi. I really have been sort of on the fence on this short interest impact in terms of the potential for a short squeeze or the stock. You know, I think that in the past said that we do run a risk of walking into a short squeeze situation. And I think right now I'm more of that stance that, if we do have a short squeeze, it won't be like the short squeezes that we see with the meme stock hype. It's not going to be a 70% overnight or a 30% overnight or anything like that. It might be a little, 10% bump here or there, as those people cover. And I think some people are definitely associating SoFi being one of the SPACs with this surge in meme stocks. It's not a great association to have because we've worked so hard over the past 3 years to sort of decouple ourselves. I saw SoFi trending on Wall Street Bets as like a hot stock that was discussed, along with BlackBerry and GameStop and AMC and Reddit and all the usual suspects. I don't think it's anything great for the actual underlying company. But at the end of the day, like you said, if this is a short-lived, last respite for the meme stock rally or that movement, then it's going to be even more muted for SoFi. I don't see SoFi jumping up. If GameStop jumps up 50% and AMC is then as a result going to jump up 25%, and then SoFi is going to jump up 5%. I don't see that happening. I think a portion of it might have happened this past week where we've had like that 7% day or 8% day, just because people are like being cautious of all these stocks with a high short interest that are trending on Wall Street Bets. They don't know which one is going to be the next shoe to drop, that all of these apes are going to sort of band behind. It could be SoFi, absolutely. That'll be an interesting development in the simulation. But if we're looking at this from a longer tail, I don't think it has a big impact. I don't think it's going to make a big dent. I don't think we're going to see an increased level of sustained volatility. Maybe a little flare up here and there, but the people who, I think wanted to be out as a result of this, they would have seen the initial short squeeze on GameStop that happened last week. And they would be like, okay, well, I'm out of SoFi. It's just too rich for my blood.
Yeah, I'm fairly aligned. I do think that there could be a bigger pop than you might think, although it's a larger float. So, and it's not ever going to attract, as much of the meme crowd as anything else. I'm not in SoFi for that reason. I'm just aware of its existence. And I know, a lot of people think short sellers are dumb idiots that don't know what they're doing. They're not. They're the smart money. That's what they're called anyway. And when they see something like this, I think that they see there's some risk. I think there might have been some covering. We might see short interest go down to like 15%, 16% maybe. We'll have to see. But I do think that if there's a real catalyst that comes, that SoFi you see start running up to like $8.50, $9, that there could be a more covering at that point, because it's kind of like when you are going long in a risky asset, that you measure that risk and you figure out, okay, is it too risky for me, or is this a good time? A lot of reward and a little bit lower risk. They do that same thing with short interest and with short selling, and they assess it as far as market conditions and macro, but also individual companies. And so maybe with SoFi, they're like, hey, lower risk on this. We don't see as much volatility. Great time to be short. Versus now it's like, okay, there's some risk, even if the fundamentals that they think are not there. Like, there's maybe too much of a risk here. And so the moment those conditions change and they see an actual fundamental rise, we could actually see not anything crazy, guys, but some pretty good green days. So not why I'm there, but if it happens, it happens, and I'll take it, man. If we can get back to like break even on the year, like in the next month, that would be great.
Yeah, like I agree that price discovery will bring added buyers. I don't necessarily agree that it has anything to do with maybe this really brings price discovery to SoFi, because if we hit those double digits again in terms of the stock price, then it will force everyone to take another look at SoFi, because it's just a stock that comes up on everybody's screener as we just broke 52-week highs. So all of the algorithmic traders and all the institutions out there, they have another chance to say, okay, well, let me look at this name. Oh, wait a minute. There's 2 quarters of sustained profitability, whatever, high short interest. Yeah, why not? Uh, I get that. Right now, we're in that no man's land. I do, however, find it really just mind-boggling, and wanted to push back on something you said, where you said these institutions are not dumb. Like, what? You know that expression, once bitten, twice shy? Like, that doesn't institutions, apparently, because why, out of the 5,000 or so stocks in the market, would you choose to continue to short GameStop, a stock which blew up Melvin Capital, a stock that has this powder keg explosiveness, and it can rally like hundreds of thousands of people by one person making a single tweet? Like, what is the thought process? Let's run that stock to the ground and short that one. Like, just short the next, the one once over. Like, like why games? Like, there's so many shitty stocks to choose from. There's so many dying companies and dying laggard industries for you to short. Like, why are you guys still messing around with GameStop? Like, it shouldn't have gone up as much as it went up last week. The fact that it did just triggered another short squeeze. And I'm like, are you guys stupid? Like, why are you still here?
Yeah.
And
I mean, honestly, that is fair enough. Like, that's one name where I don't understand. It should be once bitten, twice shy, but it seems like it's the opposite. Now, if somebody comes in like at $80 and they're like, you know what, $80, I'll short. It's worth a risk there, whatever. But when it's, I think most quarters they've actually been making money. Ryan Cohen's done some interesting things. He's now legally allowed to take some of that money that GameStop has and invest it. So you're kind of investing in ETF when you invest in GameStop. I don't like it. I don't invest for that reason. I don't invest in it at all. I just traded it, for 2 days. But it makes a lot less sense than it did during COVID. During COVID, before all the squeeze stuff, yeah, not to the degree where it went, but that was just greedy and reckless. And also, to be fair, we didn't talk about this, but I thought you were actually going to say SoFi. Like, why would you do this to SoFi? I mean, they've made money on it so far, but it's not a dying company. Like, they'll be fine. They're growing. They're EPS profitable. They're being cautious in their business, so there's no like risk of it going down to zero or anything like that. I don't know. It's a little dumb there too. So, but I think part of it is too that these are just massive, massive institutions, and maybe not so much with GameStop, but if because they can get blown up there. But SoFi, like if it doubles, in a short squeeze event, like it goes to $15, is like, well, that's awesome for us. But the big institutions are like, yeah, I lost $10 million. That's like me losing $500 on a trade.
sure.
It's like, too bad. Oh well, next one. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you were fighting a battle to make all the institutions go bankrupt. Like, they also serve a purpose. I just, like, I don't understand that fascination with these stocks. Like, just go on Wall Street Bets. This is my tip to all institutions. Go on Wall Street Bets, look at the trending tickers, and don't short those ones. Because, like, just short whatever ones are not on there that are still companies that are in decline. Like, why add fuel to that fire?
yeah.
Entertaining for me. I'm out of the trade. I love to see it just for the entertainment value, but I just don't understand the logic behind it. If you take emotions out of it, then, if I was an institution and I could choose out of 5,000 stocks to short, guess what? The 6 stocks that are trending on Wall Street Bets would be at the very bottom of my list.
Yeah, it's not worth the risk. Like, even on a lesser known name, there's plenty of bad companies out there, even now, especially now, in this high interest rate environments. And we of course got some CPI news and PCE or PCI news earlier in the week as well. Some good, some bad. Of course, it fell. The headline CPI fell. Shelter was a part of that. It continues to decline. No big surprise. It's a lagging indicator. So hopefully that means cuts will come at some point this year. We'll see. But for the time being, markets continue to be interesting. And you had one topic that you wanted to bring up, I believe, related to AI. Do you have the internet to be able to share on that one?
I don't want to take the risk, man. I see this like bar just,
Yeah.
I don't know why it is bad today. I'll figure it out. We'll see.
Yeah.
But yeah, so OpenAI had their demo of their GPT 4.0 or something. Their new thing. It was
4.0.
exact 4.0. It was exactly like that movie Her, and it almost sounded like Scarlett Johansson too, didn't it? At least like the voice was so like sultry and smooth, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a recipe for disaster when you get the robots on one hand and you get this thing on the other hand. Like this is a slippery slope we're headed down in this world of ours. But
do you guys have access in Canada to ChatGPT?
yeah, we do.
Like, I don't know, like everything's regulated up there. It's like we hate everything American and like go away. Only Tim Hortons is allowed. I don't know.
We have ChatGPT. We can learn about level 1 options. We just can't do them.
Okay. So yeah, ChatGPT, at least the app, has had that same voice, 5 different voices that are pretty realistic. There were some things that I noticed that were pretty different. So my current version, I don't know that they have the 4.0 yet fully released, so it's different than 4.0. It does have the 5 different voices, and if you're talking to it, interacting, it does do the ums and uhs, a little bit of hesitation, just like a normal person would. This was a little bit different because sometimes, there is a whole range of emotions. There was excitement. There was, just voice modulation. And also sometimes, just like we do, like we'll talk over each other. Just we're excited to get out the next point or whatever. There was some of that as well. And it's increasingly difficult to be able to tell these. And they have 5 very, very good voices. Although the one they use is my favorite. Like it's a great voice. So
can you throw up that video? Just go to their recent tweet and then we can play the video for you. So one of the things that I noticed and I don't know if you noticed, if you did, or anybody in the audience, I think, please keep me honest here, guys, but I'm pretty sure that all of their video demos, even though it was a different person from the OpenAI team doing the demo, all of them had iPhones. Like I didn't see a single Android. But that might have just been me, but they all were showing iPhones. And I don't know, man, my tinfoil hat was on. And I know that Apple has been working with, or they've been in OpenAI, and the talks are more advanced. And it seems as though the Gemini talks fell through. And so my big thing is, I think WWDC is going to have some strong AI components. They've basically said in WWDC, we're going to have an AI focus for what the software updates are going to be. And now that OpenAI introduced this, you can just imagine what the synergies might look like. I think Apple's going to be back in the game pretty shortly.
Yeah. And I don't think that they're great at innovation anymore of this type, but if they can pay somebody for that, and they certainly can, like that also will be a separator for their phone. Because I know, Google's working on some things. We've seen some of that in some of their ads, and they also empower the Galaxy line for Samsung. But this is different. This is another level. So let's go ahead and play this.
Guys, hold on. Before we play this, listen to this voice and like close your eyes. Don't hear Scarlett Johansson. Go ahead, Roy.
All right.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey there. It's going great. How about you? I see you're rocking an OpenAI hoodie. Nice choice. What's up with that ceiling about? Are you in a cool industry style office or something?
Well, can you take a guess at what I might be doing based on what I'm showing you here?
From what I can see, it looks like you're in some kind of recording or production setup. With those lights, tripods, and possibly a mic, it seems like you might be gearing up to shoot a video or maybe even a live stream.
Yeah. In fact, we've got a new announcement to make.
That's exciting. Announcements are always a big deal. Judging by the setup, it looks like it's going to be quite the professional production. Is this announcement related to OpenAI, perhaps?
It is.
I'm intrigued.
And in fact, what if I were to say that you're related to the announcement, or that you are the announcement?
Me? The announcement is about me? Well, color me intrigued. Are you about to reveal something about AI? Or more specifically about me as a part of OpenAI? You've got me on the edge of my, well, I don't really have a seat, but you get the idea. What's the big news?
Yeah, we've got a new model that can interact with the world through audio, vision, and text.
Yeah, so that dude has a fake girlfriend. I guess that's better than no girlfriend. No,
The
it's
comments. I'm just putting up the tame comments.
yeah.
But it's just, this is a gold mine. Yeah, man. Tell me that, because Scarlett Johansson was what I heard, but that might just be like my own subconscious.
I mean,
And you know
there's
why?
a bit of that there. So
You know why I think if you play the trailer, if you go on YouTube and you play she did the voice of that AI, and that whole thing was like the AI flirting with him and being his best friend. And so I was like, whoa, like it just gave me a shiver up my spine because it was just that movie in an iPhone app.
Yeah, that I vaguely remember that. Now, what's interesting with this is a marked improvement over the current version, but the current version is actually good enough. Some of you guys asked what I do. Actually, I'm ending what I do. I'm going on to something different. Actually, next week, Saturday is my last day. So I work for a top 5 university, and I train people that basically are there to serve students. So typically advisors, admissions consultants, new enrollment training, this sort of thing. We've seen influx of a lot of large language models trying to get into our system, do applications, and I think it's for financial aid fraud. There's a whole thing there I won't get into, but I posted about it a couple of times. It's the government is not prepared. Colleges are not prepared. But this guy that I was working with, he in particular was working with a chat team, and so he works with does the emails, SMS, the chat stuff. And he says, at least when we were back on phones, we could tell if it was a real person or not. I said, okay, let's test that. And so I pulled up Chat GPT. I gave it parameters, and I said, hey, you're going to pretend to be a student. Name this. This is going to be the program that you're interested in. You're going to be chatting with a representative from such and such university. Go ahead and search for everything you need there. And what I want you to, your mission is to get through an entire application with this person. Go. And unmuted and went from there. And they seriously, even though I told them this was going to be AI, like, is that your wife? Like, is this really like AI? It was a very difficult thing for them to wrap their mind around that it had progressed this well. And a lot of people, I know the folks that are here on this channel, and if you're on Twitter and everything, like we're a little bit more in tune with this sort of thing because we're seeing tweets like this. Most people barely have an idea of what AI is. And so this sort of stuff is going to shock a lot of people. It'll disrupt a lot of industries. It'll be interesting to see how it's used. Some of it'll be for good. Some of it'll be for maybe things that I would not approve of as a father if my kids were using it that way. But no, that's human nature. That's kind of the reality that we're in. But it's interesting. Like we do not live in boring times at all. Maybe it's that ancient Chinese curse.
So I have over 400 videos on YouTube. I've been doing this for about 4 years now. You know how easy it would be to train this model to use my voice, and then when I'm on an interview with a certain company we all love, this thing can have the most pointed, accurate, data-driven responses that are internet sourced in real time using my voice and my image. How scary is that? Like, that's a very realistic use case that is around the corner. You can, basically sub out the sultry Scarlett Johansson voice with anybody's voice, and all of a sudden, I'm a genius that knows everything about everything just because I'm wired into the internet. Like, how is that not terrifying?
Throw this one up. This one, we won't go through the whole thing because it's 5 minutes. This was like, okay, this is not like the current version that I have at all. It's
try something new. I'm going to let you talk to another AI. This AI is going to be able to see the world. It's going to have a camera. I'll be holding it. And so you can direct it. You can direct me to ask questions about whatever you want them to do, but really try to figure out what does it see and ask questions appropriately. How does that sound?
Well. Just when I thought things couldn't get any more interesting. Talking to another AI that can see the world? This sounds like a plot twist in the AI universe. All right, let's do this.
All right,
I'm ready
please
to meet the...
pause for 1 moment.
You got it.
Now that first AI can't hear anything. Hello, AI. Today,
Fast forward
we're
a
going
little
to talk to you. I'm going to be direct.
What are we looking at today?
Hi-yo. We're looking at a person wearing a black leather jacket and a light-colored shirt. They're in a room with a modern industrial feel, with exposed concrete or plaster on the ceiling and some interesting lighting. There's also a plant in the background, adding a touch of green to the space. Anything specific you'd like to know or explore?
Hey there. Sounds like quite the stylish scene. I'm already intrigued by the modern industrial vibe.
So that's multimodal, and I want to get to, well, they actually sing, I believe, in this one to each other. Let me see. That the singing like blew me away. Like they were making up things on the fly.
It was so cringy though.
It was.
Like the entire demo is like really cringy. I mean, the capabilities are really exciting, and the use cases are just fascinating to think through because there's so many use cases that are going to disrupt so many in time. But God, are the demos so fucking cringy, man? Like they're quite corny.
Yes, yeah, they are. But just the intonations in the voice, the multimodal that they're showing off here, especially in this, it's like this is really powerful because that's the way that most people prefer to interact with people and to have a variety of inputs. And so my son and I did something similar when we were driving across country in the Tesla. We just hooked the phone up to the Tesla, touched chat GTP, so it was on, and we were interacting and asking because we were curious about some sort of historical something. I don't know what it was. And it was great. I could just say, hey, curious about such and such. Tell me a bit about this. I'd go through and be like, well, what about this little detail here? Well, this. And my son had not experienced that before. And he is of the age, he's 20 now. So he's not like super old and set in his ways. But he was like, wow, this is actually insane. A lot of people have that reaction. So very interesting.
So, okay, let me address some of these comments. AI sounds like people I wouldn't want to talk to. This is so dumb to me. It's like, okay, guys, you have to understand that, like, if we're nitpicking on the smallest things now, the intonations on the voice itself, all of the small things that we're nitpicking, you have to understand the trajectory and the velocity of this thing. Last year or last month, let's say, this thing was only text, right? And now we have vision, and now we have audio, and it's all real time. 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we didn't even have the text option from like an enterprise level or retail level, the average everyday person that wasn't the researcher or working in a tech company. And so if you understand the velocity that this thing is moving at, it's, imagine what we can have next year. Imagine what we can have in 2 years, right? I think the exciting thing is being able to visualize that future state, right? Like, for example, the thing that makes me excited about Optimus is not that it can sort these batteries, in a minute or 2 minutes, or that it can do, a lap around the office. It's the fact that last year it could even barely stand. And if I'm putting two and two together, I'm going to say, okay, well, next year I'm going to expect to do this. And in 4 years, it's going to be in everybody's home and so on and so forth. And that's the exact same thing here. It's that next year you can probably have this thing with custom voices. You can have it with custom video. Hell, I could be AI saying all of this stuff, and it could be trained in a neural net of all of my previous videos. So it knows all of my thoughts. It knows all of my facial expressions. It knows all of my voice intonations. And it knows pretty much what I would say given any topic. It can put me on a range or a spectrum of what my opinions might be. And all of a sudden, I can just watch the basketball game right now instead of working or talking to you guys. And I can let my AI doppelganger do my job for me. And so like that could be possible in a year or 2 years or 3 years. And that is really scary. And that is also really exciting. And so that's the thing that I think you have to look, a little bit beyond in terms of what is the potential for this thing, not necessarily what is it today.
Yeah, Dream of Stuff mentioned, Copilot. Yeah, it's not great. I don't think Microsoft is necessarily the best example of implementation of AI. The best is Palantir. But we talk enough about that. There are seriously, though, so many companies that are implementing and iterating on AI. And there's a lot of use cases. I think we'll get to the point before most people believe it, like within 2 or 3 years, where it will not be uncommon for people to have their personal, not true AI, but their AI assistant, kind of like something today, just a little bit more powerful, where you can tell it like, hey, I want you to call into this restaurant and book. Well, I don't know why you'd call in these days, but as an example, you just call in and book say 6 o'clock dinner for 2, make sure it's such and such, and then also report back to me, confirm it, the reservation, and figure out what the special will be for tonight. It'll call in and do that for you. Probably be able to do that in other languages as well. But on the other end, the crazy thing is that restaurant, maybe restaurants are not the best, it'll take them a little bit longer to catch up, but eventually that restaurant will have AI also answering the phone. So you will have your AI interacting with a business's AI, and they'll be able to like hash these things out. So good, also dangerous. So we'll have to see, but it's a big disruption. It's going to change the way a lot of companies do things. And, some of the ways that we've talked about this before in the after hours for SoFi, just what companies might be most affected, especially right away. They may not be companies that you think of, like the Walmarts of the world. If they continue to implement AI the way that they're doing on the back end, like that's going to be very, very good for their bottom line. There's also some danger here, so we'll have to see. People, at some point, will AI replace people as far as jobs? Yeah, it'll start eating into some jobs. That's not so good. So, but it happens.
We're going to be out of a job soon.
Like for real, honestly, AI is not quite that good, but in a year or two, AI can assimilate information, can access it immediately, won't make the mistakes. Although there will always be hallucinations, but could do the back and forth. I remember, it maybe was even close to a year ago that, and I always forget these guys' names: Chamath, Palabatia, and those guys. Help me with that.
David Sack, David
Yeah,
Friedberg.
No, the group though. What are they called again? All in. Thank you. I was like, it's not everything money. It's All In podcast. They had an episode where they let AI just do all of the voice stuff. Eventually, images will match up and sync to that. We're pretty close to that now. I mean, there will probably be AI streamers that are good, that are credible.
But that's scary though, because it's like, how do you know? Like, how is anything real at that point? Like, how do you trust anything that you see through a screen in 3 dimensions?
And the interesting thing is, so I thought a year ago that this would have a big impact on elections. And there has been a few things that have come out that are AI fraud, that are generated images, that sort of thing. But I'm actually kind of surprised at this point. Fingers crossed and all that. That there hasn't been more impact on elections from all this. So the internet will praise. You have been replaced by AI. We'll work on Tevis 2.0 a little bit more for next week, but
yeah, by the time AI gets to Canada, you guys will have like 10 years of AI Tevis content. So, what was our topic that we wanted to chat through? Or did we have one
topic? We went through all the topics. So, I mean, we can talk about many other things. We can go back into Robinhood. Apple was one of those things I think that you wanted to bring up. The unusual Wells, Warren Buffett thing. We might want to touch on that.
Oh yeah. Warren Buffett announced his secret stock that he's been buying. What do you make of it? I mean, you called this 2 months ago. You're like, this is the secret. I don't even know how you called it. Of all the stocks, I would have never guessed. But yeah.
So I lived in Nebraska for a number of years, and Warren Buffett's a good friend of mine. So just, I called him up, and no, I'm just kidding. I did live in Nebraska for a while, but Yeah, it was one of those things where based on the allocation of the secret stock, we knew it had to be in some sort of finance type thing, and insurance certainly qualifies. So that ruled out, what could have been Disney or Verizon as likely candidates. And so, of course, PayPal was mentioned quite a bit. And so I was like, since I'm in PayPal, I should do some due diligence just to see what kind of stocks that Buffett tends to buy, especially in the situation where he tries to make it a secret. Usually, but not always, and it's not in this case, that's a buyout candidate. So I was looking and seeing, what would be the right market cap size. That's a consideration. PayPal, believe it or not, is a little bit small. SoFi was not profitable enough. I know that was tossed out by some SoFi hopefuls at the
Also
time.
way too small. Way too small.
Way too small. Like PayPal is pretty much too small. Chubb is, I think, 108 billion. And he sometimes buys smaller companies, but he loves insurance companies. And, of course, the crown jewel, and one of those that he still loves is Geico, that they bought, made private, and it's theirs wholly. It's very much featured in the Berkshire Hathaway reports that they do. And they bought a whole lot of other of these type of businesses as well. And I can't remember, I think, I don't know, I should not name any of them, but there's more than a half dozen of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that was missing from that is they didn't really have an insurance type like this. Chubb primarily specializes with business type insurance. There are some other things that they do as well. And so, as I was looking at it, somebody else mentioned this like back in November. I'm like, Chubb makes a lot of sense here. And in November, the kicker for me was in November, they started a dividend at that point. Warren Buffett loves insurance. We knew it was in the financial sector. He loves dividends, and it was about the right size of the market cap, and it fit what they were missing in the portfolio. And of course, insurance is doing very well. So I thought Chubb had a very strong possibility of being it. I didn't buy calls. I didn't buy options. I actually thought about it prior, like 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, you know what? I'm in the process of moving my account from Webull over to Robinhood. That's going to take a while. I don't need any short-dated options, even though I accidentally did that with Robinhood. So I didn't do it. Wouldn't have made too much anyway. It went up like 5%, then fell up to like 3%. But I mean, the company's strong. It's got a strong balance sheet as well. I just had all those hallmarks. And so that was my guess. Wasn't confident in it, but I was like, I think it's maybe I was like 40% sure that it would be Chubb, and it ended up being right. So blind squirrel found an acorn.
Sure. Congratulations. I didn't even see it being up that much now. Percent when I hopped on this video.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be significantly up tomorrow. I remember when he bought RH and that thing was up like insane.
It's actually up 8.31%. It continued to rise through the after hours, which is not bad.
It's just insane. Like they added an entire SoFi in after hours on news that Warren Buffett bought. Accumulating them.
Yeah, they're in overnight trading as well, 8.69%. And just like we keep throwing this stuff up, but like Robinhood, man, I'm telling you guys. But no, I think that it's probably not done running. Like, it's a good company anyway. I'm just not really interested in insurance. I don't really understand that business, like as far as an investment standpoint. And I also don't like them right now because my insurance bills, not from Chubb, because I don't have a business to insure, are very high right now. So stop it, insurance companies. But he bought CB is the ticker. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So are you going to buy Chubb?
No, no. I that's one of the, you need to know, as an investor, what you know well, and insurance has its own nuances that I don't fully understand. I know that they can typically underperform for years and then go on a tear like they're doing right now. I don't understand it enough. So actuarial tables and all that, like, no, thank you. I'll stick with some fintech that I actually know. AI, and Palantir. Nubank is one that I like to add here in the next few weeks. It needs to start going down, please. But
that was very eloquent and intelligent answer. But I also remember about 45 minutes ago, you were talking about buying GameStop. So,
but not to invest in, like, literally. So there are only there's only maybe like a handful, a dozen stocks possibly that I would not buy under any circumstances, even if I knew it was going to double the next day. I just won't. And those are ones that I view as a cancer in the world. Chubb isn't one of those. I just don't care about Chubb. GameStop, I mean, GameStop's a fine company. I hope it sticks around. I hope they make it. But I don't want to be a long-term investor. But there's any stock outside of those dozen or so that I'll be happy to trade. I just want to hold long-term. And so I have a small portion in my portfolio that I keep, and it's a lot less now than it should be, honestly, on the side, typically in cash, where I will trade back and forth on stocks. Sometimes I'll make a trade that, is a couple of weeks long, and sometimes I'll make a bet. Well, I think the longest that I typically do is about a month, but a lot of these two are day trades. And I do well with it, but usually when I do that, it's with what I view as very high percentage plays. Sometimes I get them wrong. A lot of times I get them right. And so I think the most recent right one was in March, when Robinhood was set to release those March monthly numbers. I'm like, dude, these are going to be amazing. I bought a bunch of short-term calls, which I normally don't do, and they absolutely printed. Like, it just, I think I was up 400%. At one point I was up like 900%, but it came back down in the pre-market. I'm like, okay, cool. But it's not a large play. Like, that was under $1,000, but I mean, you 4x it, you get some free money. It's great. Made some of those. Like, I usually do that also on stocks that I know. So I've done that on Palantir on short-term stuff where I'm like, hey, there's a catalyst. There's something coming up. I'm not changing my long-term thesis, but I want a little extra money riding on this. I've done it on PayPal as well. I've done it on SoFi, and I've been wrong about as much as I've been right on SoFi, on the short-term stuff. But I got the long-term stuff that I don't touch. I just leave it as it is. Chubb is one of those, I thought about it, but I don't know, like 40% for me was not high probability. I didn't think I'd lose any money, if I just bought shares and let them ride for a few weeks, but I didn't feel good about it. I didn't have a lot of cash anyway. So yeah. GameStop though.
I'm getting excited about the idea of getting back into buying stocks maybe towards the end of this month or June. It feels like I haven't bought in such a long time, just because May is like, I still don't know how much I'm going to be paying in taxes. So like, I did my personal ones, but yeah, I need to not ape into stocks right now to be liquid. So I've just been not paying attention to the market. I think that's where the DraftKings things comes in as well, and just work and stuff. But I'm going to be taking 2 weeks off. We'll see. I'll probably still end up making content. I'm going to be traveling. When I come back, beginning of June, I should be able to invest again, and that's going to be great.
Yeah, we'll replace you with AI for the next couple of weeks, but it's fine. Scarlett Johansson, better co-host than you. Sorry, but you're close. You're close.
It's the sweetest thing you ever said to me, Roy. Shall we end it there?
Absolutely.
Don't buy over the summer, Tev. I thought I saw something that that whole like sell in May and go away thing didn't apply to years that had such a violent Q1 upwards, and election years. Like, historically speaking, it actually got stronger throughout the year, especially if the first quarter was as strong. But I don't know. Who knows, honestly, man.
Sell in May seems like it has gone away. It used to be, I don't know, like 5-6 years ago that was pretty common to fade into summer. But yeah, it's not been the case the last couple of years for sure. I know Tom Lee has been mentioning that too, where he sees May as a buying opportunity, especially after some weakness in April. And so far in May, he's right. We hit the all-time high in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. I was talking with a young friend of mine who has just started investing, and he's just doing index funds. I mean, it's always fun when you invest and you just see it go up every single day. And that happens in a bull market, especially in the index funds. So it's great.
Honestly, say what you will, and I have talked my fair share of shit around dividend investing, but it's pretty nice, man. If you invest with the boomers out there, and you sort of follow, what the politicians are investing in and what the institutions are investing in, then like I checked my portfolio the other day, and the dividend portfolio was just humming along every single day, about 3-4 green on that day. And sometimes I'll get notifications throughout my workday like has reached all-time highs or 52-week highs, and I'm like, oh great, that's fantastic. And then I think to myself, oh wait, I'm also getting paid every quarter for holding these stocks. This is nice. As someone who can't sell options on, it really is, it's the little things that count.
Yeah, and I actually saw something that reminds me with Warren Buffett when the Chubb thing was announced. People were looking at the company like, that's a boring company. It's a Buffett company. Like, he doesn't invest in companies because they're new and exciting and they'll change the world. He just like these are dependable growers that are going to multiply over the years, and they'll be there and continue to grow into the future. He doesn't need 100 bagger or anything like that, although he's done that many times too. And so, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that style of investing. Boring is not necessarily bad, especially if we will get back to a bear market eventually. It may be a couple of years, but when that happens, is like, man, those boring stocks, they do well. So, there's different strategies. You got to figure out what works well for you. So,
okay, on that note, I am going to go watch the Mavericks game, and all 200 of you can go on with your lives. Thank you so much for watching the Bootleg Weekly, and we'll keep you posted on the next couple of weeks, just because I'm going to be in a different time zone. So maybe we might do a different time much earlier in the day. Maybe we might pre-record it. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Stay tuned for more. See you, everybody.